That's one turbo build, but what's better than one turbo bike? Two turbo bikes. So in this video I tell you all about how I found a new old stock Luftmeister turbo kit for sale far away from home. And how this bike that shouldn't be a build got completely out of hand. So let's go. It all started when I picked up the K100 turbo project at Custom Cafe Racer. The custom turbo manifold and downpipe were finished and we started talking about the intercooler from the K100 Luftmeister kits back in the day. The Luftmeister intercooler could serve as a basis for the K100 turbo project. So I opened up Google, typed in the search term and opened up the images tab. While scrolling down to the image I had in mind, I saw an image which I haven't seen before. Interesting. The image led me to a sales site where a complete Luftmeister kit was on display. Even better, everything looked very neat, almost like unused. I knew one thing right away, I had to have this. Unfortunately, the ad already ended over a month back then, and not only that, but it turned out to be in Switzerland, almost 10-hour drive from home. So I tried my best. I created an account, got in touch with the seller, and yes, the kit is still available. We came to a deal and then began the task of getting it to the Netherlands. That proven to be quite difficult since Switzerland is not part of the European Union. But after a lot of back and forth on the mail, I managed to get the shipment on its way. Now I only need to find a suitable K100 to mount the turbo on. Oh yeah, one detail, I promised myself, do not turn this into a build, only mount the kit. Unlike the turbo kit, I found a suitable BMW K100 LT just 5 minutes from home. And it was the same color as my K1100 turbo build, a match made in heaven. The overall condition of the bike left something to desire, but as promised I would only install the Luftmeister turbo kit. Also, there was one small drawback, the bike didn't run. So task number one, get the bike running. The previous owner told me the bike had been sitting still for 7 years, so he rode the bike and just stored it and that's that. So already took off the fuel tank, which needs some work, but I'll get back to that later. I first checked if the diffusers were all good, so those are all in the right position and the right amps right there. The battery, well, that's the definition of that, so I only got 1.7 volts on the battery. For that I got a new battery, but still need to wait until it's fully charged. While I'm waiting up for the battery to get fully charged, I'll take out the spark plugs and then put like a tablespoon of oil into each cylinder just to keep it a little bit lubricated before I really start the bike. I also received some new spark plugs along with the bike, so hopefully that's then all the work that we need to do for the electric side of the bike. I've got some confidence in the wiring because the wiring loom is really nice. So I haven't had a bike before which had a layout like this, so the connectors are still good, so no soldering, no cutting. All the insulation tape is still right there. Also the rubber around here for the fuel tank and right here, and even the foam on the fueling rail is right here. So maybe the injectors are clogged up, but yeah, time will tell. So the spark plugs are out. Now it's on to task number two, fueling. So the fuel tank is off the bike obviously, and based on the surrounding of the fuel cap, it does hold some surprises. Well, maybe not even surprises because the bike has been sit still for that long. So the fuel leveling sensor looks like it's gone, and I'll definitely need to drain the old fuel. I'll replace the fuel hoses and probably also the fuel filter, but the previous owner also told me the bike did receive a new fuel pump before the bike had been set for that long, so maybe the fuel pump is still in good nick. So let's get going by changing the fuel hoses in the fuel tank and on the bike, drain all the old fuel out and put some fresh fuel in, and hopefully it will fire up. After draining the old fuel, I did take a close look at the fuel pump and it did really look brand new. So hopefully it only needed a flush. The old fuel got completely rinsed out until I saw fresh fuel out of the return line. And by the way, this is why you also need to change your fuel hoses. Okay, so far great. The fuel pump works, that's a good sign, and also replaced all the fuel lines on the bike. I still want to do a final rinse throughout the whole system before I start the bike up, so I also clean out all the bad fuel, the old fuel that's inside the fueling rail. Now I only need to check if I've got spark, and after that the bike should start up. So hopefully the spark is visible in front of the camera, so let's check it out. Yeah, buddy. So fresh fuel going in, and as shown earlier, I cleaned up the whole fuel tank. Now do a final rinse to clean out the whole system. We got spark, so it should start up. So I have no idea why it won't start, so ignition. Clutch. Oh, retard. Well, epic fail sorted, I hope. Let's try again. Yeah, buddy. Here we go. No smoke. That's a good sign. Idle's running great, so a little bit of idle adjuster right here, so still need some. Let it warm up a bit. No funny noises, no leaks. Okay, great news. So she's a runner, runs good, runs smooth. Now it's time to take it all apart again and mount up the turbo. So the last thing that I wanted to do for this bike was doing a full build. So I drained the fluids and that should be it. But after some closer inspection, the bike looked rough, very rough. Flaked off paint, corrosion all over, rusted bolts, it's a mess. Ultimately, I couldn't resist and took my tools out to change some bolts and doing some minor work. After day one, the plan of doing only some minor work was already somewhat forgotten. By day two, I decided to take off the rear wheel, final drive, swing arm, and take a close look at the gearbox. So why not take off the gearbox too, and since we're only doing some minor work, why not take out the engine too? Looks like I fell for it again. With the initial plan long forgotten, it was time to fully strip the engine down so we could clean everything up. And based by the looks of it, I can't say that it was unnecessary. Got the cleaning tools out and started to work, so the prep work could start to freshen everything up. The wheels and brakes could also use some TLC, so drop the wheels off to have the tires removed. The throttle body already cleaned up beautifully with fresh O-rings, new stainless steel hardware and rebalanced the butterfly valves. Well, that escalated pretty quickly. It looks like I can't leave things untouched, so I got a bike floating mid-air right here. So it wasn't my intention to go this deep into the build, but I can't leave things untouched, so it seems. Spoken about untouched, I got the engine pretty much fully stripped down, so this is as deep as I'll go because the compression is also good. I will do some more cleanup on the engine. I'm still undecided to paint the engine or not. I also need to strip this down because I need to change the seal and I want to get this painted myself in this crate right here. So everything right here will get blasted and powder coated, and everything what's inside this crate will get only blasted, so I'll paint that myself. Over here the gearbox, so this turned out pretty ugly, so I need to do some final work on that, so I also can get this blasted, and then I'll paint that myself too. And the smaller stuff around here, I'll blast that in my blasting cabinet with glass beads. There was another reason why I decided to remove the engine from the frame. While removing the exhaust, all the nuts had rusted so badly that they were virtually impossible to remove. Unfortunately, the stud on cylinder number 1 had broken off. By having the engine on the working bench, there was the only way I could remove the remaining piece. Attempt number 1, to weld the nut on the remaining thread. This way I could regain grip on the nut and, thanks to the heat of the welding, potentially loosen the thread inside the cylinder head. As luck had it, this also broke, and I only saw one solution: drilling. I started with a small diameter drill bit and worked my way up till I reached 6.8 millimeters. After that I carefully removed the thread with a M8 tab. Job done. Got the parts back from the blaster, now it's time to do the paint and the Cerakote. So I got quite a lot of questions about the paint. So what I use is this is what I use for almost all my builds. It's called Sailor-Mix DTM Direct to Metal, and in this specific case I use 10% gloss. I'll use that for the engine, the gearbox, the swing arm, all that, like the larger stuff, and then I'll mix it up and use some graphite black C-series and tungsten gray for the small parts, just to give it a little bit more contrast. And the C-series you don't need to bake it off, so this is the air dried version. So let's get painting. With the 2K paint phase done, it's now time to focus our attention on the smaller parts. Starting off with the aluminum parts, which got glass bead blasted. Following up with the parts which got Cerakoted in tungsten grey and graphite black. The paint and Cerakote phase is now done. Now it's time to rebuild the engine, and therefore of course we need parts. So I got my first order in from K100 Holland, so let's check it out what I've got so far. Okay, batch number 1, here we go. Nothing too crazy for that matter, just like the basic stuff that you need to rebuild the engine. But I want to show you this right here. So a complete stainless plug kit for your K-bike, and they also come with a magnet inside them, just like original. So when we take the gearbox as an example, normally the plugs are all rusted out and really does look very nasty, but with these stainless steel plugs it will look very cool, on point, and also give a nice little bit of contrast. The other parts, nothing really too special for the matter, just gasket, bearings, etc. But also went ahead and ordered a new fuel level sensor because the old one in the bike doesn't work and was pretty corroded, so I want to have that spot on. Same goes for the leads to the coils and the plugs. And also this is a new K100 Holland brake disc, so for the rear obviously. So when we go more power, we also want to make sure that we stop on time. Spoken about on time, I received a call from a powder coater that the parts were ready to be picked up. With these parts back from the powder coater, the parts received by K100 Holland, it was time to build up all the smaller parts and time to put the engine back together. In the meantime, I was still working on getting the parts from Switzerland to the Netherlands, and I finally, after months of waiting, received good news from the transporter. The parts are on its way. So now it's time to crack on, put the engine back together so we can put on the turbo. I always try to prep as much as I can in advance. For me, this helps a lot with the assembly of the engine. By having all the smaller parts like the starter motor, alternator, oil and water pump already rebuilt, you can simply just bolt them on. By also already sorting out all the correct length bolts in combination with the nuts and washer, everything bolts up just like Lego. That's the theory. Now let's put it all into practice. Enjoy! With a prep like that, the engine just put back together in a couple of hours. And as you can see, I just couldn't resist painting the top of the engine as well, so now it's matching up with the K100 turbo bike. Now it's time to put the engine back on the lift and put it underneath the frame. To make my life a little bit easier, I mounted the coolant pipe, throttle bodies and air filter before lifting the engine into the frame. By using 2 engine lifts, the engine could easily be lifted into the frame. That's all done, then followed up by installing the fresh gearbox. And then the second batch of parts came in from K100 Holland, so I could finish everything up. With the remaining parts in house, I could assemble the final drive. Then it's a matter of a small sprint towards completing the bike by installing the swing arm, final drive, new brake rotor, rebuilt calipers, and then followed up by the freshly powder coated wheel. In this case, there is no need to change the tires since the marking from the factory were still on the tire. So after months of waiting, it finally arrived, my full new old stock Luftmeister turbo kit. So this actually is the standard touring system, which is the mild version, and the turbocharger to start with will run around 4 to 5 pounds of boost, so not a whole lot, but as you can see right here, they welded the wastegate shut and they integrated it into the exhaust manifold right here. So this houses the spring for the wastegate, and then it will regulate the boost from here. So it also came with the gaskets, the O-rings, but I think it really is new old stock because the turbocharger isn't used. You can't see any carbon anywhere. You could say that it's rebuilt, it could be, but when we take a look at the downpipe, you can't see any scratch marks, and also along here doesn't show signs that it's ever been mounted to the bike. So also again on the inside of the downpipe, it's maybe a little bit dusty, but no carbon whatsoever, and also the weight is very light, especially compared to the very heavy K exhaust. So yeah, I think it will look really cool on the bike. So then we have the turbo, the manifold, the downpipe, and for the oil return they used the original oil pan and they welded an elbow to it right here, and then the return line will go from here towards the oil pickup point. So when you have the oil pickup point, so this is the original stuff right here, and then they welded this piece to it, and this will actually slide into right here, and then it will suck up the oil. The oil feed line will go from the pump towards top side of the turbo, so then we have the oil circulation all done. This is actually the blow off valve. The boost will go right here and just the standard airflow meter, and then it regulate the boost right here. So this will actually ventilate it to atmosphere, so I need to get a air filter to cover this part. Also, I got the full Luftmeister instructions along with it, so it's a step-by-step process to install it on the bike. So I never seen it this complete. So this actually is a copy, because right here you can see it's really old and quite fragile. It's over like 40 years old. So I scanned it and now I can use this. If you want to have this, send a DM on Instagram or shoot me an email on Corner.Custom and I can send it to you. This is another reason for me to think that it's never been mounted to the bike, because it also states in the manual that it has the orange hose. So this will go on the airflow meter and then it will connect up to the original plenum. And for the plenum right here, so this will be used for blocking off the plenum, and this will go for the crank breather underneath the fuel tank. And this is the upgraded intercooler. So the first intercooler was just one piece and those bikes ran pretty hot. So they came up with this revision with, they had the opening inside here, so they had more air cooling for the radiator. So it really is a pretty cool feature. I still need to clean it, but then it's ready to be mounted up on the bike. And it's also very handy for me to use it on the K100 turbo project, so it'll give a lot of insight on that. And right here, so the last thing that came with the kit is the air filter, but it has a housing, so it's protected against the elements, stone chipping, whatever, rain, of course. Yeah, there's also a good insight for the K100 turbo project. But yes, this is everything that came along with the kit. And you probably think, what about the injectors? Well, since it's just the mild version of the turbo kit, it mentions right here, the standard touring turbo system is designed to operate using stock fuel injection system. So you can use just the injectors and everything, so it will run fine with that. The boost will regulate at 4 to 5 pounds, like mentioned earlier. Yeah, then mentioned something about the test ride, and the boost will actually kicks in around 4,500 RPM. So yeah, I think right now it's just a matter of start with step 1 and go step by step and installing it on the bike, and then we go definitely to the dyno because I want to make sure that the bike doesn't run lean or rich. So of course I want to check that, but right now it's time to install it on the bike. Here you can clearly see the difference between the new gen oil pickup on the left, which was originally installed, and the modified Luftmeister oil pickup on the right. New oil filter, all filled up and ready to be installed. When installing the oil pan, it took a little bit of adjusting, pushing to get the oil pickup tube through the AN fitting, but otherwise nothing major. Then it was time to install the exhaust manifold, and man, that was something I didn't really want to do twice. Seems that the clearance around the mounting bolts and the pump cover and timing chain cover was, yeah, minimal. I really had to get creative to get everything installed correctly, but once done, I could install the downpipe. The Luftmeister spaghetti found its way to the cylinder head, and the turbo has been mounted too. Along goes for the downpipe, and I have to say I really dig the blacked out scheme with the blacked out wheels and the black downpipe. So that phase is now all done. Now we need to talk about the air intake. And it all starts with this thing right here. So this is the air filter and the cover that's over it, so to prevent it for debris and rain and whatnot. So I opened it up. It still looks new, just like the rest of the kit, so that's good. So the air goes in right there, and via this outlet it goes through the turbo, the compressor, which pushes the air up through the intercooler, and the riding air will cool the air that passes through the intercooler. So the air-to-air intercooler passes here on top through this tube right here, and then the air will go through the airflow meter via the silicone adapter into the air plenum. This cap will go on the side of the plenum, and this anodized plate will go on top of the engine. The plate is mounted, so that's all done, and I forgot to mention that the crank breather found its place right here. So now it's time to mount up the airflow meter. Spoken about the tight fit, but the rubber is on. Now it's time to put on the air filter, and since we're going in totally random order, next up the intercooler. For some reason, the intercooler bracket that came along with the intercooler, well, didn't fit at all, like you can see right here. So way too short. So I made a new bracket. Now the intercooler is all buttoned up. Same for the tube, and also got a air filter for the blow-off valve. The airflow meter is right in place, so the air intake is fully done. Now continue on the oil supply and return. Starting up with the oil feed. Got this line right here. It looks like it's long, way too long, but I'll point it away from the hot side of the turbo, and then it will go actually underneath, and maybe it's kind of hard to see on camera, but there we go. So there it will connect up where the oil pressure sensor used to be, and connect it up via this adapters. The oil feed found its place like I first mentioned, so clearance around here is still a little bit tight, but that's because I still need to tighten the banjo on top right here, but I first want to flush the line before I connect it to the cartridge, so this is more or less done. For the oil outlet, we got this bung right here, and that needs to be connected up around here to the new oil pickup point, and therefore I received multiple hoses. This one's too short, and this is only a hose, and this is way too long, but this one right here does seem to fit, so the 90-degree fitting fits pretty good around here, and it also houses a check valve, so that's very good for the longevity of the cartridge. But this coupling, this fitting right here is just too long. I need to have it something like this so it can make the turn onto the oil pickup point. So I ordered that, that's on the way. So the oil return will go something like this. Now continue on the vacuum lines. Point 52, here we go. Connect the length of a vacuum hose on the brass fitting of the inlet of the intercooler. Connect the other end of this vacuum line to the brass fitting on the side body of the wastegate located under the turbocharger. Yes, done. Point 53, connect the other length of vacuum hose to the brass fitting on the end cap of the wastegate and run it under the engine block-off plate. This is a vent line that allows the wastegate to function. So now I finally know why I've got this engine block-off plate. Let's continue on the boost gauge. Boost gauge, quick and easy install, so for now I zip tied it on the bracket of the fairing. One end of the vacuum hose connected on to the gauge and the other end right here to one of the throttle body ports. The temporary oil return line is now connected to the oil pickup pump with the check valve, obviously, so pretty DIY job, but I will change that. For the oil feed, I got it connected to the bike. I flushed the line and I also checked if I got oil pressure, which I've got. Yeah boy! So now it's time to connect up the fuel tank and the fuel lines and check how the bike runs. So here we go, let's see how this will go. Clutch to be safe. I think the battery doesn't really want to cooperate. Well, a whole lot of nothing. I thought it would be just as easy as pressing the starter button and just go. Especially because the bike just ran perfectly before I decided to tear the bike all apart again. And in a sense, it doesn't make really any sense at all, because the bike runs on stock everything. Stock ECU, stock airflow meter, fuel pressure sensor, injectors, but I decided to troubleshoot it. I changed out the airflow meter, air temp sensor, throttle positioning sensor, injectors and the coolant temp sensor. And got the multimeter out to check the load shed relay, which works. And just to check, I also changed over the K100 fuel tank to the K100 and also tried out the fuel pressure regulator from this bike. No difference. But after some more troubleshooting, I found out when I pull out this fuse, so fuse number 6, which regulates the load shed relay and the water temp sensor, the bike starts. So I need to open the choke like all the way maximum, and then I press the start button and then it fired up and sounds like this. But the bike doesn't run good at all. It runs really rich. So I throw a picture of the spark plugs on the screen right now. Well, I guess I have to do some more troubleshooting to get the K100 Luftmeister bike just to run just perfect. But my time is up for now. I still need to finish another bike on which I have a strict deadline on. So if you enjoyed the video, please like, comment, all the good stuff, and subscribe. You're really helping me out by subscribing to my channel, and I'll see you all on the next video. Ciao!